What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Early Read BetSided's college football betting show. Week 12 in the college football season. It's the middle of November already. Who could have seen this coming? That just flown right by. But plenty of chaos as per usual in college football. The Pac-12 has put itself on the brink of not making the college football playoff again. Just when it looked like they were going to be normal, chaos ensued late night out west. So to look through everything, sift through the fire that is, we brought on Max Meyer, editorial content writer from Caesars Sportsbook, to talk all things Pac-12, to talk UCLA versus USC this weekend, USC Oregon, the college football playoff, everything in between. Week 12 best bets. We got Max on here. Max, appreciate you joining the show. How's it going?
No, I'm good. And it was definitely classic Pac-12 last week to cannibalize itself and leave itself with only one team really that has a realistic path to the playoff.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like it was going to be Oregon. Everything was laid out in front of them, nice and easy here. Even USC could have maybe made a run, but now with UCLA losing, Oregon losing as double-digit favorites, everything kind of falling apart for the Pac-12 as it seems to do. Just when it looks like it's perfect for them, everything comes crashing down. So we're going to talk some college football, start the show. Then we're going to talk both. We're still going to talk about big Pac-12 matchups, and then we'll get into the rest of our best bets for the Week 12 card. So let's unpack what happened last weekend. Oregon and UCLA, each as double-digit favorites at home last weekend, lose outright. Each team's second loss. So they're now removed from the college football playoff picture. They could still make the Pac-12 championship game, maybe play some spoiler along the way, but the Pac-12 has completely ejected itself. So, Max, I'll ask you, USC, you're an alumni. You're plugged. You got your pulse on the program. They have a tough three-game stretch coming up, starting with UCLA this weekend, then Notre Dame, and then a Pac-12 championship game against probably either Oregon or a Utah team they lost to already. So looking at USC's chance to go to the college football playoff, likely, unlikely, you think that it's all breaking their way and this is how it works with Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams. How do you see this all breaking down for the Trojans, I guess, without going too in-depth to the game this weekend?
Yeah, I think first off, Lincoln Riley has done a great job in his first year. I was a little skeptical. USC's win total before the season was 9.5. I would have guessed 9, and here they are, 9-1 with 2 games left. I still think it's unlikely though. Their previous schedule heading into their final 2 regular season games, like they haven't really been tested. They've played 7 Pac-12 games so far, and the combined conference record of those teams is 14-36. And their past 3 games, they've beaten Cal and Arizona by 1 possession each. And they did cover against Colorado last Friday, but that was also kind of a sluggish start. I mean, they were down 3-2 of all scores at the end of the first quarter. So this isn't exactly a team that's been playing their best ball, and they've been, and they haven't played, the top tier competition, unlike UCLA, that has played some of those bigger teams. So, very interesting matchup coming up nonetheless.
Yeah, this is an anti-USC show. I have been a pretty staunch fader of USC this season. I'm on their underwin total. I got them against Utah, thankfully, but I mean, this has been a USC team that I haven't been super sold on this season. But listen, you got to beat who's in front of you, and you look at teams like Oregon, who they beat UCLA, but then they get tested against Washington, they fall. UCLA, they lose to Oregon, and then they drop a game as 20-point favorites to Arizona. So there is some merit. I will give USC some credit finally on the show that they beat who's in front of them, and it's right in front of them right now. I don't know if they're going to be able to go the distance here. It's basically 3 coin flips, in terms of spreads and how it's going to go. Notre Dame plays up to their opponents. I don't know if USC is going to get over the hump here and get in. I think what's interesting from all these results is I think the ACC is back in play with TCU winning outright against Texas as 7-point underdogs. They're now on track to go undefeated, it seems like, and maybe just take a spot. Does a one-loss Clemson or North Carolina team, now that the Pac-12 is starting to remove itself in the picture, do they get in over Tennessee? I think that's a possibility now, just with more teams falling out of the race. Does the committee look at the ACC one-loss likely champion? What do you think about the ACC and how they go? Because I definitely don't want them in, but I think it's becoming a possibility.
Yeah, and no, I agree with you. I think just given what we know from the committee that they really value conference championships, and especially if Clemson and North Carolina both finish undefeated in the ACC, because both of their only losses have come to Notre Dame. I think that they have,
Ironically,
yeah.
and USC has to play Notre Dame. This team's going to be playing spoiler left and right.
I feel like if Notre Dame didn't lose to Marshall and Stanford, that they very well could. But like you said, they've been playing up and down to their competition. I don't know if they can leapfrog Tennessee, but I do think that if TCU does stumble, everyone is crapping on the ACC and saying for Big 12 that they're a legit conference. But every single Big 12 team except for TCU has at least 3 losses. So I mean, so if you have, a TCU team that loses in the Big 12 championship versus a Clemson team whose one loss was in admittedly poor fashion to Notre Dame, but they sweep their conference schedule and win their conference title game, I think that they easily have an argument for the 4th spot.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting debate, especially Tennessee is kind of sitting there, and I feel you can't feel safe if you're Tennessee. There's still a little bit of like things could break against you. I know you're an SEC team, but what happens if you get TCU runs the table and then it's a one-loss Clemson team? All of a sudden, it becomes this committee values Power 5 champions always. That's always a one-loss Power 5 champion has always gotten the benefit of the doubt than an at-large team like Tennessee in this case, assuming they win out. I don't know. I think that there's a lot of permutation, a lot of ways this could go now. And it's setting up for a very interesting debate. So, Max, I ask every single one of my guests going into tonight's reveal for this week, which doesn't really mean anything at the moment, but for the sake of right now, if you had to pick the top 4 teams when it's all said and done, who's in the college football playoff, what is it with the information we know today?
Wait, who do I think will make it? Or,
Yeah,
or,
when we get the Final Four, not tonight's reveal, but Final Four, what do you think it is?
All right. I'm going to go Georgia, Ohio State, Tennessee. I'll go Clemson.
Okay. I'm going to do the same as you. I think Tennessee gets an nod. I'm going to switch TCU, though, in for Clemson. I think TCU ends up getting. I think TCU, getting over that Texas hump. We'll see how this weekend goes against Baylor, but TCU is really, they're passing every test. Say what you want. They face backup quarterbacks sometimes as they come back, second half deficits. This is a team that finds ways to win, and there's something to that. So great stuff there on the college football playoff. Let's get into some bets, though. Let's pick some winners here. A little bit of housekeeping before we get started. 4-4 last week on the show. 48-39-1 on the year. Still great. That Cincy total last week was a little annoying. It was 52.5. I said I was going to wait, try and get 51. I bet 51.5. Of course, lands 52. We'll count it as a loss, though, because we're honorable here on the early read. We will take the loss there in stride. But we also passed 1,000 subscribers on YouTube last week, so thank you to everyone that does that. We really appreciate that, and let's crush these last 2 weeks. So let's start with our marquee matchup. Let's do UCLA, USC, the crosstown rivals. USC laying, call it 2 points, total of 75. USC, we'll call it 2.5. Total of 75. Max, you are the USC alumni, so I'll let you lead off here. Are the Trojans going to get through, like we said, 3-step process here to get to the college football playoff? Step 1, beat UCLA. Are they going to do that?
Oh man, it's tough just because USC I'm sure remembers last year how UCLA just absolutely dunked on them and scored 62 on the Coliseum, or in the Coliseum I should say. And so there is certainly a revenge angle there, and the fact that they have such a coaching upgrade from what they had last season. But I've been really impressed with UCLA so far. They have had a couple disappointing efforts against lower end teams, especially, losing outright to Arizona, and they almost lost to South Alabama, even though the South Alabama's looked pretty solid this year, but they almost lost to them non-conference. But the thing that really scares me as a USC alum, I mean, USC's run defense has been a train wreck for this entire season. And I love Zach Charbonnet, DTR, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. USC usually has trouble with dual threat quarterbacks. And I just think that UCLA and Chip Kelly can just, pound the heck out of this game and just take advantage of a really porous USC run defense.
No, 100%. I think that this USC defense, that's always been my concern. They get by on turnovers and forcing, fumbles. They recover their own fumbles. They force other teams' fumbles. And I don't think you're going to get that against this UCLA team. It's strength on weakness on both sides of the ball. USC, number 2 in success rate. UCLA, number 3 in success rate. USC's defense, number 122nd in success rate on defense. UCLA 117th on success rate. I mean, are you seeing the theme here? There's not going to be many stops here. I mean, the total 75. The big thing for me here, though, is USC's going to be without Travis Dye. He's going to be out the rest of the season, it seems like. And he's been the stabilizing force to this USC offense. You know, you watch them. It's a lot of Caleb Williams bailouts, but Dye keeps this offense ahead of schedule, keeps these drives alive, and really keeps the Trojans, you know, in these games. Because third down, maybe you get some Caleb Williams scrambles, but I don't think you're getting that against this UCLA defense. Top 15 explosive run and pass. USC outside the top 100 explosive rush defense. I mean, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, like you said, Charbonnet. I think these guys are going to run wild. I make UCLA a small favorite in this game, so I think they're going to win this game outright and end this whole Pac-12 to the college football playoff conversation. I just think UCLA, I know it's a new coaching staff, but maybe they just have their number, and I like DTR. He's already talking smack that, you know, he wants to hang more than 60 after last year. I think they were looking ahead last week after the Arizona game, or during the Arizona game, looking ahead to this week. I like the Bruins here. I think they're the better team. I've liked them more all year. This is one of those spots where I was circling it. I think USC is going to get got here, and that's how I see it. So I'm with you here. UCLA, I'm going to take the points. I think UCLA wins this game outright, though, if you want to take a small money line shot. Not terrible. I agree with you. I don't think I gave a pick during while I spoke. No, but I agree with you. I think UCLA +2. And that was interesting. Caesar's look ahead line before, you know, USC beat Colorado and before UCLA lost to Arizona, it was USC -3. So the fact that the line has still dropped to 2.5 despite those results, I just think that USC, like you said, they've definitely run a little bit lucky, especially with their turnover luck. I'm with you. I'm taking UCLA in the points and money, and I think UCLA wins outright as well. Yeah, 100%. I just think the Dye injury is a big deal, and this USC run defense just hasn't been able to stop anybody all year. Now you're running into one of the best rush attacks in college football with DTR and Charbonnet. So I think there's a lot of issues that UCLA can expose. And you know that this isn't a letdown spot for UCLA after their dreams are crushed. They lose to Arizona. You know they're getting back up for this one. And I'll ask you this, Max, before we transition to our next topic. What is this stadium going to be like? You know, I know it's a UCLA home game, but UCLA, it's always empty there. Is USC going to show out for this game? You think it's going to be very heavy red in the crowd, or you think that UCLA comes in droves for this one?
I mean, LA's fan bases, it's a little shaky, especially, but the Rose Bowl, it's the most spectacular stadium in college football. And this is also the dream uniform matchup because both teams wear their home uniforms. So you have the Cardinal and gold and the blue and gold. I think it'll be pretty solid, but it definitely won't compare to, you know, an SEC or Big Ten atmosphere. But, you know, it's on Fox. It's the primetime game. It's the one I think with the biggest implications this week for both teams. So I'm expecting a high scoring game. But USC, like we've been saying, I just think USC's time is up. And so, UCLA for me here.
An honest man here. Let's pull up that recap graphic just in case you missed it. Me and Max, we both see eye to eye here. We're both taking the Bruins as small home underdogs in the crosstown rivalry against USC. So UCLA +2.5 for the both of us. Let's move to the other Pac-12 match. We're doing like a double marquee matchup. Maybe a little luster off this one, but still big to Pac-12 title implication, especially someone who has a Utah future like myself for them to win the conference. So Utah travels to Oregon to face the Ducks. Oregon about a 3-point favorite. Total, we'll call it 61.5, 62. Max, how do you see this game going? Any thoughts on Oregon, their loss to Washington? Did you kind of see that coming? And let's talk Oregon versus Utah.
I didn't see the loss coming, but I had Washington 13. I was kind of way
easy side there with Oregon's defense.
Yeah. So Oregon's defense, they have a pretty solid front seven, but they're terrible at rushing the passer, and their secondary is very young. And it was just a bad matchup for a Washington, you know, passing attack with Michael Penix Jr. that, you know, loves to spread out the defense. And sure enough, he was averaging close to 12 yards a throw, and he didn't get sacked once. And yeah, and even though, both teams kind of struggled in the red zone, they still put up 71 points combined. So I guess it goes to show you the type of defenses that both of those teams have. Obviously, the big question coming into this game is just the health of Bo Nix. He suffered the right ankle injury during the game, and they had to put in their backup quarterback, Thompson, at some points, including on the critical 4th and 1 in their own territory. Bo Nix, I mean, he's been a revelation. I don't think anyone expected him to be this good, let alone I don't know if he's necessarily still a Heisman contender after Oregon lost, but he's definitely been one of the better quarterbacks so far this season. And then Utah, for me, has also been a bit of a surprise in that this is not as physically, imposing a Utah team as we see in most years under Kyle Whittingham. They gave up, they let Anthony Richardson run wild in their season opener. They gave up 42 to both UCLA and USC. So, the fact that they're relying on Cam Rising and that passing attack and not, like a physically imposing ground game and defense, it's definitely kind of been a unique Utah team.
Yeah, I think that, you nailed it on the head, in my opinion. So I guess I'll go with, I mean, I completely agree with you. So I see eye to eye, but how I see it here is the key here is this Utah defense. It's not your father's Utes defense in Salt Lake City this year. I mean, like you said, they gave up 40 plus to UCLA and USC. Florida ran well against them. And this is an Oregon offense that, I mean, my God, this team could score in bunches. They score with ease. They're averaging more than 4 points per drive this season. Utah, on the other hand, they're averaging 5.74 yards per play. It's 76 in the country. Bottom 40 in red zone touchdown defense. That is a big issue because Oregon, when they get in the red zone, they're scoring 6. They have an aggressive coach. I know Bo Nix was banged up at the end. He still finished the game. I think he's going to be okay. We haven't heard much about that. Either way, I'm taking the over here. I think that we're going to see very few stops. I had the over last week against Washington. A lot of goal line, we'll call it tomfoolery. A lot of fumbles in the red zone, and the game still went. Florida with the closing total with 71 total points, got over the early numbers. That game probably should have gone to 40s for each team last week. I think you see that again. And you look at Utah's offense also, Cam Rising, top 10 success rate, 20th in rush yards per carry. The Utah offensive line has only allowed 8 sacks on the year. Oregon's offensive line, I believe, has only allowed 2 sacks. So you're going to see Rising and Nix both upright the entire time, carving up these defenses. I think each team gets into the 30s with ease, just like they did last week. I think over is the play. And Max, I mean, we're 2 for 2 here. We're both seeing eye to eye. We might need to get some disagreements on the board. Let's pull up that recap graphic there. As Max, he's taken over 62. We'll see what happens. He might be weighing out the Bo Nix news a little bit. I'm also on the over 62. No fear here. I think Nix is going to play. And if it's not Nix, I still like it. I think that this Utah defense can be had by the dynamic Oregon offense. So let's talk some underdogs, though. So I'm going to preview it, and you're probably going to get a gist of what I'm going for. But you're taking a team that is near and dear to my heart. I had them last week on the show. Slow start, got the cover home anyway. Absolutely shut down Notre Dame's defense. But tell me why you're going back to my well and taking Navy catching 16.5 against UCF.
Yeah, so usually with service academies, anytime they're a double-digit favorite or double-digit underdog, there should be alarm bells ringing. Just, with the triple option and the fact that they run so much, they limit the possessions for each team, which makes it harder, to win by bigger margins. And Navy, they've been double-digit underdogs 5 times so far this season. They've covered in all of them, including 3 single-digit defeats and 1 outright win over ECU. And now they're playing UCF, and UCF coming off a massive win over Tulane. And obviously with Gus Malzahn at the helm, they love to run the ball with John Reese Plumlee and their stable of running backs. Navy has an elite run defense, though. And so it's strength versus strength. And, with the fact that both these teams are going to be running the ball a lot, I just think, that the clock is going to be, wiping away. And so the fact that this line's at 16.5 and UCF has to win by 3 scores, to me, I'm definitely glad to back the midshipmen once again as a double-digit underdog.
Yeah, UCF also, they're all but certainly making the AAC championship game. So there's not like a incentive to run it up here. So Navy, they were good to us last week. They've been good to us on the show. So we support the midshipmen all the way. I'm taking another kind of gross underdog here. This one coming at home. I'm going to take Wyoming plus 14 against Boise State. quietly, Wyoming has emerged from the Carnage of the Mountain West, 7-3 now all of a sudden. And this game's pretty much going to decide the division and who's going to go to the Mountain West Championship game to likely face Fresno State. And, I've spoken on the show about Boise's offense coming together after they moved from Hank Bachmeier. They fired their offensive coordinator and bring in Dirk Cutter. But Wyoming's defense has been very strong this entire season. I mean, top half the country in S&P Plus's rating in terms of defense. And Craig Bohl thrives in this spot as a home underdog, 6-3 against the spread as a home underdog of double digits since taking over in 2014. 5-4 of those, he's 5-4 outright. Has won outright 5 times out of 9 times. He's been a double-digit home underdog. That includes wins in the past over this Boise State team. Wyoming loves to run the ball, so I think the clock is going to be rolling here. It's going to be strength on strength, though, because Wyoming's offensive line is top 50 in line yards. Boise State's defensive line is just absolutely filthy. I just think that you're going to see Wyoming move the chains, keep this rolling. And Laramie, it's going to be windy. It's going to be a tricky spot. Just laying double digits on the road with Boise State. They've beaten up on a lot of middling Mountain West teams. I just don't know where Wyoming falls into that, so I'll take the points there. Especially this defense locks up in the red zone. They are top 40 in red zone touchdown percentage, and they're only allowing about 2 points per drive. So if Boise's offense stumbles out of the gate, I think that this game is going to be a rock fight, low total. I'll take the plus 14 there. So there's 2 double-digit underdogs for you right there. Max is going to take the points with Navy plus 16.5, and I'm going to take Wyoming plus 14. There's your recap graphic for you there. Let's talk some weekday, though. Let's talk some weeknight action. Max, you were looking Friday night, South Florida, Tulsa. Maybe not the most appetizing game on the slate, but you got an edge here, so let's hear it.
Yeah, so a little disappointed that there are no Pac-12 Friday night games this week that I could look at. So,
this one's a little tough.
Yeah, so choosing between the MAC or the American, and I didn't even, when choosing, this last night, like I didn't even get the best of the line because it's now up to 14 today. I saw it dip down to 12.5 and back up to 14. But I would say like a common theme for this college football season is that teams have been doing very well covering the number with interim coaches, especially compared to how they were against the spread with their previously fired head coach at USF. They fired Jeff Scott a couple of weeks ago, and their first game with their interim coach was against SMU. And they were tied at the half before SMU kind of ran away with it in the second half. But this is also a team that they've played Florida and Cincinnati really tight earlier in the season. So they have the talent level. And this is also a team that's kind of, this is their best shot to get off the schneid and finish with a conference victory versus Tulsa. Their bowl dreams are gone. They're on a three-game losing streak, and they were eliminated from bowl contention after losing to Memphis. I guess with Tulsa, like they have a very strong pass defense, but they're terrible against the run. And with USF, they do have one of their only strengths, which I guess is nice considering they're 1-9. They run the ball very well. And so I think the fact that they have this strength against a Tulsa weakness on defense, and Tulsa, beginning of the year, they had a pretty explosive and high octane pass offense, but that they haven't been the same as in recent weeks. And so, I just think with the motivation factors and how these two teams match up, even though I didn't get the best of the number here, I still like USF to keep it close. And, just with having the interim coach and the new breath of fresh air. I mean, even, I guess like one example, Arizona State, after they fired Herm Edwards and had their interim, they got smoked by Utah their first game, and then they upset Washington outright in their second game. So whether it's first game, second game, any other game, it's just, interim coaches have been a nice trend so far for this college football season.
Yeah, I don't hate the look. Davis Britton's been banged up for Tulsa, and this Tulsa defensive line is just absolutely terrible. I think it's USF or pass. Also, South Florida should have covered in the game last weekend. They actually cut it to 18. They could have kicked an extra point and just made it 17. I believe it closed 17.5, or it was 17.5 during the week. They went for 2, kind of. I mean, I guess like to make it 16, and then recover enough onside kicks and do enough stuff and math, you could cover or win. But they probably should have covered in that game. So kind of a fraudulent non-cover there. So I don't hate taking this many points here, especially a Tulsa team. Like you said, they're dead. The season's over. There's really not incentive to play. We don't even know who's going to start at quarterback. So we'll see. I'm going to do some MACtion, though. 4-0 on MACtion plays on the show. Let's go Eastern Michigan. This is tomorrow. Eastern Michigan plus 7.5 against Kent State. Kent State, they played a really tough non-conference schedule, but this is normalized now. You know, they played enough MAC where this should equal out. They're still bottom 20 nationally in EPA per play on defense and success rate. And this is an EMU offense that has shown that they can move the ball very nicely. Top 20 in third down percentage, top 20 in red zone touchdown percentage, top 15 points per drive. So they could keep up with this Kent State offense that really tries to play fast, score a lot of points. EMU has shown they could keep pace here. So getting over a touchdown is important to me. Kent State hasn't covered a spread over anytime they've been favored by more than a field goal. They have not covered the spread. They blew out Bowling Green last week, 40-6 on the road as a 2.5-point favorite. But when they're expected to win by margin, they don't do that. The defense can't close out games. They've also lost twice outright as a favorite of more than a field goal. So I think you're going to see this Eastern Michigan offense be methodical, move the ball, and just stay within earshot of this Kent State team. So getting over a field goal, I'll take Eastern Michigan plus 7.5, some MACtion play for you there. So there you go. There are some weekday bets. Max is taking USF plus 13. You could, guess what? You could get an even better number now. So jump in on that against Tulsa. And then I'm going to take the 7.5 with Eastern Michigan against Kent State. That's tomorrow night in some MACtion. And so, Max, I feel like you can get the vibe from the show that I like to take some gross bets. I'm not afraid to really put myself out there and try and get some, really ugly bets on the card. So we call this segment the Trust Me bet. And I could see what bet you have, and it's absolutely disgusting. So I won't even say anything else. Tell me why we should trust you and take this bet.
This might be the most disgusting bet of the season, but Texas A&M, God, I don't even know, like any negative adjective, like you could call them a dumpster fire, but that's an insult to dumpster fires in my opinion. So they are laying, 33.5 to UMass, and they haven't scored 34 points in a game this entire season. And, obviously their offense has just been a major, major disappointment. So why in the world am I suggesting to lay 33.5? I just think, I think that this is a spot where they're going to kind of, all their pent up frustration, and they're just going to take it out on a poor UMass team where Texas A&M just has such an immense talent mismatch. And I think just like anything, like any kind of positive momentum that Jimbo Fisher can use to, maybe salvage his upcoming recruiting class. I mean, I don't necessarily know with the Tex Ags message boards, if even, blowing out UMass will stop all the negative posts there. But I just think any sort of positive momentum, even though their season, they're the first SEC team that was eliminated from bowl contention before Vanderbilt, which I thought was amazing. But I just think that this is such a talent mismatch. I think motivation wise, even though it's not an SEC opponent, I just think that they, kind of think like this could be like a chance to show off, show out, and, potentially, show all the talent that they still have and just, completely dominate an overmatched opponent. So I actually like the 33.5 here with A&M.
Yeah, this feels like if they get a little bit of momentum, they're going to run the score up. If they go up 28-0 at half, they're not bringing in the backups because the backups are already playing. They want to take some frustrations out because this season has been absolutely terrible for the Aggies. I mean, we know about Jimbo Fisher's buyouts, and it's large. I don't even know if enough oil money in Texas could take care of that. But I can't hate the look because UMass is just so bad. I mean, it is still an SEC school against UMass, who is one of the 3 worst teams in the entire country. So I don't hate taking that spread against UMass with Texas A&M laying 33.5.
Well, you will hate it. Until...
on the bet itself. I can hate you for taking it though and making me sit through it. So Texas A&M minus 33.5. My bet, you just said it. Navy Service Academy getting double digits. That's the move. It hits at over 58% clip. I think it is in the past 10 years. Let's talk Army though, because they're laying double digits, which is usually not so appetizing for bettors because this team plays slow. They only run the ball, athletic mismatch sometimes, but not in this spot against UConn. Backed them last week. They won outright to qualify for their first bowl since 2015. They are celebrating in stores right now. They still are. They qualified on Saturday. They're also outgained by about 300 yards in the win against Liberty. So it's kind of a fluky 36-33 win. And Army, they have 3 games left. They're 3-6 on the year. So if they run the table, they will qualify for a bowl. So there's an incentive for them to win. And also, this is just a mismatch for the UConn defense. Army, top 10 in line yards. We know what they're going to do. They're going to pound the rock and try and get a push up front. UConn is bottom 20 in defensive line yards. While they do a good job of limiting explosive plays, they're bottom 30 in success rate against the run. So I think Army's going to play bully ball all day. And UConn, awesome story. They're 9-2 against the spread, but are they really showing up for this game? The game is absolutely meaningless to them. They already made their bowl. Their season's been made. Meanwhile, Army, they played a service academy team, Air Force tough, lost 13-9. They played a Troy defense that is filthy, one of the best in the country, honestly, lost 10-9. You don't think that this Army team wants to kind of get off the schneid, get off this like losing streak where they've been shut down on offense and try and blow out a team that has no incentive to play? I think so. I make this Army around like 10.5, 11, but given the spot, this is a bet for me. So I'll take Army -10. Again, little unorthodox bet, we'll call it, but that's why it's the Trust Me segment. This is why we do it. So Max has taken Texas A&M -33.5 against UMass in the toilet bowl, and I am taking Army -10 against UConn as my Trust Me bet. And there are some bets there. I got, Max, 2 more bets I want to fire off in our Best of the Rest segment. If you have any other plays, feel free to throw them in, but really quick, rapid fire. I think my favorite bet of the weekend is going to be before the weekend. It's going to be on Thursday. Tulane -3 against SMU. Faded Tulane last week. I'm going to come back and play them here. I think SMU is a little overvalued here. They've scored 145 points over their last 3 games, but that comes against 3 defenses that are outside the SP plus 100. This is a Tulane team that's 30th in that same metric. They are fantastic. And we saw SMU sputter against the better defense in the country. UCF, limited below 30. Cincinnati, limited below 30. This is a Tulane team in that class. And Tulane, I know they lost to UCF, but they have a ton to play for in terms of the AAC championship game. If they win out and beat Cincinnati next weekend, they are in the AAC championship game and get UCF again. Tulane's offense above average, top 50 in success rate and averaging nearly 3 points per drive. Top 40 in red zone touchdown percentage. This is an SMU defense that is 107th in yards per play allowed. This defense is terrible. So I think Tulane -3. Maybe people are banking on a letdown spot for the Green Wave and a quick turnaround. I think Tulane blows them out. I think they're the far superior team here at home on a short week. So give me the Green Wave -3. And then next one, we've been fading Cincinnati a lot on this show. We're going to do it again here. Temple +17. Since getting absolutely dump trucked by UCF 70-13, Temple's covered 4 straight as underdogs. And I love this spot for Temple. I mean, we're just talking about Tulane, Cincinnati next week. What is Cincinnati's incentive to go on the road and win by 3 scores? I think there's none. Temple, EJ Warner playing really well at quarterback, and this is an upgrade in terms of what defense they're playing. But I still think that this offense could look competent enough to stay within this big number. And, I mean, Cincinnati hasn't covered big numbers all year. 2-6 against the spread as a favorite. So I think Temple could stay within this big number. +17. They've looked competent of late. Max, you have any other plays you want to give out, anything you want to plug? This is the time, whatever it is.
Yeah, so 2 more that interest me. First one, we've talked about how Notre Dame has been playing up and down in their competition. And once I saw this line hit 21, I was like, okay, I'm in. And it's Boston College +21 against Notre Dame. I mean, BC's pulled off a couple outright upsets as double-digit underdogs this season to what NC State and Louisville. And Notre Dame as a double-digit favorite, I don't think that they've covered a single game as a double-digit favorite this entire season. And, you know, obviously Navy last week, they only won by 3. They lost outright to Stanford and Marshall. And, you know, again, like I just, and especially, you know, playing USC in a massive game next week could be a little bit of a look ahead spot. BC, they have one of the best receivers in the country in Zay Flowers. And I think that the passing attack, you know, can make some, and we have seen, you know, Notre Dame defense against inferior competition struggle defensively in spots. I think BC can keep it within 3 scores. So I'll take the 21 there. The other one, definitely another look ahead spot. So obviously Ohio State, Michigan, biggest rivalry in the game. And they play each other next week. Michigan actually play a decent opponent in Illinois this weekend, but Ohio State, they play Maryland and they're on the road at Maryland and they're laying 27.5. just given where their preseason expectations were, Ohio State's offense has kind of been a little Jekyll and Hyde this season. I guess just not as consistent as you would think that they would have been. And with Maryland, with Mike Locke, like I just think that they're like it's still like a little bit frisky, and they might catch an Ohio State team trying to look ahead. And I think that there was maybe like 4 or 5 years ago there was a similar spot where Ohio State was playing Maryland the week before Michigan, and that was the game where they only won by 1 in overtime. So I just think that this is a look ahead, especially with Michigan absolutely crushing Ohio State last season, and I just think that this is where a game that Ohio State circled the Michigan game, and so they might very well overlook the Maryland team. And then another.
You have another one.
And then one, I think this line might be a little too low, and I don't love the fact that they're already coming off that win over UCLA, but Arizona, Washington State, I think it's down to Washington State 3.5 last time I checked. Mm-hmm. Jaden DeLora, I mean, he cannot wait for this game, and he's already said in press conferences pretty much that like he's that this is like the biggest game for him this season. He's a Washington State transfer. Arizona's offense, I love their wide receiving core. I think DeLora, even when he was at Washington State, definitely a competent quarterback. I think just another revenge angle. I think the line is a little bit too rich for me right now, but definitely another spot where maybe if Arizona goes down early and you can get them at like 7.5 live or something like that, that's one where I pull the trigger too.
Yeah, the Ohio State one. I don't even know how much are they really going to run it up here, laying those points. To me, it's Maryland or pass just because the number is so big. And Ohio State, they've been battling injuries left and right. Jackson Smith and Jigbush hardly played this year. So
all three of their running backs are hurt too.
Yeah, it's pretty clear that, winner of it's not pretty clear. I guess I just think it's pretty clear. Winner of Ohio State, Michigan is going to the playoffs. So they want to be 100% for that. Are they really going to try and run it up? I'm not sure. And then Notre Dame, we love to fade Notre Dame as big favorites. So I'll be looking at BC way. That's the one I still have circled I have to get to. And then in terms of the Washington State game, I saw DeLora said it's personal between him and Washington State. I was looking over maybe just because Arizona wants to play fast. DeLora's going to try and make plays, maybe make plays and throw the ball to the wrong team. The guy is prone to a few inexplicable turnovers. Washington State maybe could get like a pick 6 or something, but total in the low to mid 60s. I think over might be my look there on the desert, but all good looks there. And Max, thank you again for coming on. For me, for more of my plays, I'm on my bet stamp at RW33. A bunch more get posted, but we got 2 questions we wanted to get to from the comments. Jerry chimed in. We didn't talk about this game, but he says Georgia's going to pulverize Kentucky. Yeah, they are going to pulverize Kentucky. In terms of the line, I think that line might be a little dated. I think Georgia's way out in front of 3 touchdowns.
I think it's 22.5 or 20.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people are with you here, Jerry, that Georgia's going to pulverize Kentucky. Will Levis, I mean, I never saw the NFL draft hype, the top 5 pick hype, but now he's shown people why there were some concerns there. I mean, this offense has been sputtering all season, and Georgia, they just destroy everybody. One way or another, whether you like it or not, they're going to find a way to beat you by 3 touchdowns. So, Georgia, they play Georgia Tech next week, so I don't even think it's a look-ahead spot. This is just a one-way traffic to the Bulldogs. Any thoughts there, Max?
This one's tough just because, Kentucky, obviously, they're a snail. And you're right, like Will Levis, like I don't think that the hype is warranted for NFL, but with Chris Rodriguez, and their offensive line isn't the same, but they are still going to play slow pace with under Stoops and try and limit the possessions. And we saw last week when they were a huge double digit favorite against Vanderbilt and lost. Like it's tough, kind of a little bit similar to Navy, where like this is a team where you kind of want to back as a big underdog and fade as a big favorite. Though we just saw Tennessee absolutely thrash Kentucky, but as good as Stetson Bennett has been for most of the season, they just don't have that same type of explosive offense as Tennessee does. I would probably lean at I think the under would be an interesting play for me here. I don't want to lay all those points with Georgia in a game where I don't really see that many points to begin with. So yeah, stay away from me on the spread, but I don't mind the under.
Yeah, and then just I guess before we get to the next one, because we didn't talk about Georgia on the show, in terms of national title, futures, market, anything, do you have any comment there, Max? And I guess we could segue into Ben's question. He asked if there's any big money movers at Caesars for week 12. Before we get to week 12, though, just in terms of the national title market, not in terms of, odds or anything like that, do you have any opinion on it? Maybe the Heisman race, anything stick out to you from a futures market perspective?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not exactly sold as CJ Stroud on CJ Stroud as the favorite. Like
Okay.
obviously a lot it depends on his performance against Michigan, and I do think Ohio State wins that game. But I don't know with how Hendon Hooker's been, and I think Drake May is also live. I think that he's personally the best quarterback in the country talent wise.
Yeah.
I think that the race is actually much tighter than the odds would suggest. So I wouldn't. Like I just Stroud, I think has been really good, but like I was saying before with Ohio State, just the offense, the consistency on offense just hasn't been what at least what I expected. And numbers wise, I don't think that he's a runaway given the similar numbers between him and some of the other top quarterbacks in the country this year.
Yeah, I personally think Stroud's going to end up winning it. I don't know if he's that good, but it's a progress system. I think Ohio State is going to beat Michigan, and Stroud's going to look good doing it, and that'll be enough to push him over. Drake May, I agree with you. I think he's going to be a top 3, maybe even number 1 pick in a few years when he goes pro. He's filthy. But from a Heisman perspective, I just if North Carolina loses to Clemson, it doesn't matter. He's not going to win. You know what I mean? Like if Stroud is on the undefeated team and he has the stats to put it up, I think he gets it done. There's a reason why he's not the odds-on favorite, though, because I think there are some questions. I think people are trying to talk themselves out of Stroud. I just feel like the media doesn't like Stroud because he is, he's the quarterback of the best team with all these like pro wide receivers. Like, what's so exciting about him? I saw the Athletic straw poll this morning. May is right behind Stroud, and so is Hooker. So it is a tight race. I just think forecasting out the next few weeks, it's going to go where Ohio State beats Michigan. And Stroud is going to get the nod, and he'll be kind of the quarterback that takes home the award, even though he may not even be the best one. To me, if there's a dark horse that could get in, I think it's Stetson Bennett. His numbers are comparable. He's the quarterback of far and away the best team so far, especially after that Tennessee win. I think Stetson Bennett at log numbers are something that I have been thinking about adding to. I have Stetson Bennett and Stroud future, so maybe I'll add a little bit more to Stetson at longer odds, but ultimately I think that this is going to be Stroud's to run away with. But in terms of, let's bring it back in though, week 12, any big line movers? I know I don't want to put you on the spot if you don't have your numbers in front of you, but in terms of any line moves that you're seeing this week that jumped out to you, from the look at, I know you mentioned USC, UCLA, nothing really moved there. Anything did move though?
Well, look ahead. I mean, Oregon, Utah. I think Oregon was they were -6 before, dropping down to -3.
Maybe that's a little bone injury uncertainty.
Yeah, I think that's the key part of it.
Yeah.
I know. Unfortunately, Ben, I feel bad. I haven't really I haven't really looked at a lot of the college football betting action so far. It's just been very heavy World Cup and NFL for me this week. But Thursday is when I'll do my, comprehensive where I look at the betting action and line moves for every single game. And that article will be out, just like every single Thursday so far this season. And I guess like on Thursdays also, after I read the article, I provide all the top 25 betting trends for tickets and for handle. But if there are any, non-top 25 games that anyone wants to know about, I just because I have all the action in front of me, like I'm always happy to answer any questions there.
Yeah, and you should be following him on Twitter at the Max Meyer. Max, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Big shout out to Sean for coming on, for helping behind the scenes, producing this. If you like this stuff, if you don't like this stuff, it doesn't matter. Just make sure you like and subscribe to this stuff. It's all good stuff. Give it 5 stars if you're listening on podcast form. Enjoy your week 12. There's only 2 weeks left of the regular season, so let's make it count. Let's cherish these final Saturdays we have with the chaos before the season's over. And we will see you for week 13. Best of luck this weekend, everybody.